We're going to start off with some Power BI news. We haven't done news for several months. Those who've been around with us the last two events, you will have known that we had special speakers on a two-part special topic, which was AI. Well, the 4 top vendors to do with AI and data analytics. If you missed that and you'd like to catch up on that, we've got that recorded on our YouTube channel. In a little while, I'll just show a QR code where you can get to our GitHub location, where I've also got copies of the slides there. So if you want to have a look, that's quite nice as well. But in the GitHub repository, we do have all our other links, including the YouTube channel, so you can get to that content. But the reason why I brought that up is because we haven't done news for a while. Unfortunately, even though we haven't done news for a while, we have to keep the news segments short because we've got Power BI news by Vusi and Nolo. We've got Fabric news with Kaylin. Then we've got a BI Flash. Okay, Jessica's going to do that for us. The PBIR file format. Okay, and to do with collaboration and automation. So that's a BI Flash. And then the main topic for today, roughly 30 minutes bringing us to the end of the session, is Vusi and Nolo again doing the top features of 2025, specifically Power BI rather than Fabric. So Power BI top features of 2025, great way to try and remember what came out back in January or February or March last year, and just to sort of remind each other that those features are out there. So well worth sticking around to the end. Okay, so that's the first page. The second page, let's just do that quickly. Very much the same thing, except I'm currently in the introduction section, and then I will close us off at the end. There are 1 or 2 other topics I would like to bring up quickly before we start. One of them, if I can just, I'm sharing my screen now, but I'm going to go to another window here. Can you see the meetup site? That is for the Global Power Platform Bootcamp, which is an annual event. It takes place around the world, typically last weekend of February or first weekend of March. So it's taking place in Johannesburg, not this Saturday, which would be the 28th. Instead, we're doing ours a week later on Saturday, the 7th of March. So it's mainly organized by the Power Platform user group. However, I'm part of that organizing committee as well. So I've got the URL here. I will paste it in the chat. Let me do that quickly right now so I don't forget. Excellent. We are still open for RSVPs. So please RSVP within the next few days, because we will be closing registration for that event. We've got to finalize catering and do all sorts of things, so we need to know the numbers. But there are 3 tracks on the day. So it starts Saturday morning, ends just after lunch. And there are 3 tracks. The one track is obviously in our area of interest, Power BI and Fabric. So we've got about 4 or 5 speakers there. Then we've got another track on Power Platform and all the different components within the Power Platform, and 4 or 5 speakers there. And then finally, we've got a Copilot and AI track. So there's something in there for everyone. And it's on Saturday at Microsoft the 7th of March. Okay, so that's what I've got on there on the screen, and shared the link. Right, back to PowerPoint. So I've covered that. Oh, yes, now's the formal time for me to say welcome to Jess. I did briefly mention it when we had about half the audience. Now we're at full strength. Jess has kindly volunteered to help Kaylin and I organize. So you're going to see a new face regularly. There's a lot that happens in the background, and we're delighted to have Jess on board. So thank you very much to you, Jess. And you'll see a lot more of her, so that's great. Thank you. All right, excellent. GitHub, that sort of story. I tell you what, let's get to the next one. There are 2 QR codes on this page. This green one is new. We put a new survey there. The questions are the same, but we thought perhaps the old form was putting some people off because we weren't getting any survey responses, which is disappointing because we desperately want the feedback. We want to know what you are enjoying. what you're not enjoying, what you want more of, what you want less of. Okay. And then, of course, we want to know whether you're willing to volunteer either for a main presentation, okay, which could be 30 minutes, it could be 45 minutes, or a BI flash, which could be 5 or 10 minutes. Okay. We're constantly looking for presenters. It is not as scary as you think. So please fill in the survey at the bottom there. It says whether you want to volunteer. And the one thing to consider, you can get some bragging rights. There are some companies that actually incentivize people for doing community type events. You might even have a KPI around this. And we're very happy as the organizers to write a little letter to your HR department to say, yes, you've presented and you can get some points there. Or of course you can just do it for the love of the community. Okay, but for whichever reason, please do consider volunteering. It is always nice to have fresh faces and fresh content. Okay, we're nearly done with the sidetrack, the side road. One other one just to mention is there is another user group that is very similar to ours. Okay, it used to be called the SQL user group. Then it was rebranded. Michael Johnson is in the meeting today here at the moment. He used to look after that. In fact, looked after it for, I don't know, 15 or 20 years. Long time. Literally, he retired now. Now we've got Warren and Naren looking after it. They have asked for increased collaboration between their user group and our user group. So we've already met a few times this year. So you're going to find out more about their events, and we're going to advertise our events with them as well, plus some other collaboration, which we'll unfold or unpack as we go along the road. But their event meets the second Tuesday of each month. It is part of the Microsoft community series of events. So it starts at like 4 and goes all the way to 8 p.m. and different topics at different times. So the point is that theirs was the SQL user group, rebranded as data and AI, or data, more of a data engineering slant, but with Fabric, there's an overlap. So you have now 2 opportunities to learn more about the technology that you love so much. So ours is the last Thursday of each month. And theirs is every second Tuesday. Okay, but we will talk more about that as the time goes on. There is the GitHub QR code where, as I mentioned, you can get the copy of the slides from previous speakers. We've now got 13 or 14 months worth of content there, including the Microsoft presentation, the Click presentation about their AI products from last month. And then late last year, we had the Tableau and SAP Analytics Cloud slides. So they're all there. So go and have a look there. Even better, go and turn on notifications so you know when those have been updated. And there's also links to our YouTube channel there. So, all right. Last bit, just to get out the way, in terms of the agenda, as I mentioned, we normally at the end, the last Thursday of every month, except for this year, we've got 2 tricky things to deal with. The one is, if we were on the 30th of April, it is literally right in between 2 public holidays, Monday and Friday. So that's a no-go zone. So we are considering 23rd of April, 1 week earlier. Okay. And then in a similar way, our normal slot would have been 24th of September, which is a public holiday. And instead, we are considering the 17th of September. Okay, so that's another alternative. So we are now in February, but we've got 2 things to consider. We haven't finalized the topics for the next few sessions because we're looking for volunteers. So don't forget that survey. Okay, enough from me now. Thank you. We're going to hand over to the first presenter, which is the Power BI News. Are you able to share, Nolo? Or do you need permission? Do you need the right button settings?
I believe this will be Vusi.
I keep getting myself confused. Vusi, you're good to go. You're sharing. I could see that already. I'm going to put myself on mute, and I'm going to hand it over to you. Thank you, Vusi.
All right. Good evening, guys. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Awesome. Please give me a second while I move my screens around. Okay, cool. So welcome to today's presentation, or my presentation rather. So in my agenda, I'll be introducing myself first and then give you a bit of announcements. And then after that, I'm going to jump onto the monthly updates. So I'm going to be covering both November and January on my monthly updates. So there's quite a few things that I need to go through, and I have to run through them quickly, which I'll try to do. So speaking is Vusi Masimula. I am a BI consultant at Sado Analytics. There's my email there. Previously, I would put in my LinkedIn as well, but I decided to remove it this time around for some reason. Okay, on to the announcements. The first one is the deprecation of the Power BI Q&A feature. So this feature will be deprecated later this year, later in December. So if you love this visual, I'm sorry, it had to go. Personally, I'm not too sad about it. I've never actually used it for any report that I've worked on. I don't think I do know anyone who's ever used it. But for those who love it, not to despair, because it is essentially being replaced by Copilot. Not that not that you didn't know. And then the next one is SSRS web part support discontinuation. So they will no longer be supporting this feature as of 13 April 2026. Cool. On to the updates, the monthly updates. First things first, we're going to be talking about Copilot and AI. So these are November updates. So the first one is Ask Anything Anywhere with standalone Copilot in Power BI mobile apps. So this was in preview. So basically, you can start chatting with your data, use the new Copilot button in your homepage, and this will open up an experience for you, so you can just chat with your with Copilot anywhere, anytime. So the next one is updates to the standalone Copilot in Power BI. So previously, Copilot would ask users when they're using it, it would ask users when they're querying data in terms of which data set they should it query from or look for answers from. So now that's no longer a thing because it's going to automatically handle that. Unless if maybe your prompt wasn't specific enough, that's when it's going to ask you to give more context. Which I think is pretty nifty because when you use Copilot or any AI, you tend to get wrong answers if you aren't really specific. And then the next one is new entry points from the homepage. So this was supposed to be released later on in November, I guess, after they released the updates. And then they even give you new prompt suggestions on the homepage as well. So the benefits of these are better visual recommendations, expanded visual library, and improved context awareness. Okay, moving on to the next one. Remote Power BI model context protocol server for chat with your data. So initially I looked at this one and I thought, not too sure that I know too much about this and I wanted to skip it. But later on, I realized that there are actually some data modeling features that actually use this feature. So I thought maybe it would be wise to cover it. So for the model context protocol, in short, MCP server. For Power BI, it provides agents with clients and tools to enable you to chat with your data remotely. So the server has 3 tools that give you agents the ability to reason over your data. The first one is get your semantic data, your semantic model schema. So this tool provides your agents with the structure of the semantic model. The next one is generate query. So this one uses Copilot in Power BI to generate your DEX query based off of the inputs that you've given to Copilot. And then the next one is execute the query, which gives the agent a mechanism to query the semantic model and respond to any question or user ask. And then moving on to Copilot. Now this one is a January update. So this one gives you the ability to attach a reference to Copilot, specifically in the chat. So this would be a report or a semantic model that maybe want to query Copilot about, which I think is pretty awesome because they're now Copilot actually has more context of the questions that you'll be asking, and it's going to give you more direct answers. And then moving on to reporting. So in terms of reporting, this is for November. We've got the automatically expanding matrix columns to fill available spaces. So personally, I felt this one would be a pain sometimes when you're working on a report and say maybe you're still playing around with different fields and stuff like that, but you don't want to have to constantly change the spaces because of the real estate on your page or on your visual. So now this feature just allows you to, well, you go to the options part and then you select grow to fit, which then allows your view of the visual to be more dynamic and just eliminate any white spaces on the visual. And then the next one is the card visual. So the card visual is now generally available. Personally, I've loved the new card visual since it came out, even though we did have a few bugs, but I've used it in a lot of reports that I've worked on. So now with the general availability, it comes out with dynamic collage layout, which I thought initially was there, so I was a bit surprised when I saw this, but then I realized that I haven't actually used the visual enough. I just use it for the basic stuff, and yeah, I'm rambling. And then we've got App Copilot, which is in preview. This is an app scoped pilot, which means that users can search for reports within the app, ask questions, and receive answers based off of the reports in that app. And then next we've got One-Lake Catalog. So One-Lake Catalog now supports user data functions for translytical task flows, which is in preview. I have not really worked with translytical task flows that much because I've never really had any use for them, but I think they're very useful for someone who, when working with their data or when viewing their reports, they'd like to make some changes here and there. So now they've introduced more features for this on the One-Lake Catalog, which are the browse, search, and view details and filter. So I'm just going to skim through a lot of the remaining content because I see that I'm using a lot of time. So the next one is field parameters, persist hierarchy, level setting. So field parameters were initially introduced in July, which improved the matrices. Remember, their expanded or collapsed state. Okay, I don't remember what I was trying to say here, but so when they introduced it, users loved how it was, and then they introduced an update. So the update that was introduced, it sort of changed the behavior of how field parameters worked, specifically on, say, your matrices and stuff like that. So now they've reinstated that. If you can check this this visual here, the visual just down below, not the visual, that section down below that tells you of how to go and switch on that setting. So basically that setting allows you to save the state of the visual. Say maybe if you want it collapsed, or if you don't want it collapsed and stuff like that. And then the next one is format pane improvements. So in format pane improvements, they basically introduced the reset to default functionality or feature for visuals. So with this, that means now when you're busy working with your colors and you change the colors and stuff like that, you can now just revert if maybe you've messed too much about and you don't like what you're seeing. And also when you're working, and I'm not quite too sure about this one, but I think, so what they're saying is that they've added this, the back button. So, which I think is nice, because I think previously when you're working on this, you would have to click on the side for this pane to disappear, which then takes you away from the whole theming view. So I think it's pretty nice that they actually added this. And then I'm going to move on to modeling. I think I've already spoken about the MCP server. I'm not going to waste more time on that one. And then on the semantic model version history. So you can now confidently make changes on to your semantic model. So this is a feature that they released early last year, but then it wasn't preview all along until the November release, or the November updates. So just looking, I just want to see what else I can mention. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one, which is my last page. So in modeling, they finally added a functionality or a feature for using Tyndall on Visual Studio Code, which is now generally available. So for those of you who love using Tyndall, I think this would be great news for you, because every time you're working on code and stuff like that, it's always better to work on a platform like Visual Studio, because that's basically designed for coding. I'll leave it there. Thank you, guys.
All right, excellent. Vusi, thank you. It is always a tough job to combine more than 1 month's worth of updates into a short space of time. So yes, you did overrun, but it was a tough job to get it all in there. Thank you for that. Next up is Kaylin. Please go ahead, Kaylin.
Perfect. I'll just share my screen. Just bear with me, please. Perfect. Can you see my screen? Awesome. All right, cool. I'm going to try and keep this quite brief. As Vusi managed to do, it was an amazing job with all those updates. I have only selected a few critical ones, but I will post some links in the chat after this, because Fabric have actually come out with quite a nice blog mechanism where you can actually go and watch a little video clip as well of some of the latest features that have come out within the month in this monthly update, with a bit of a demo. So I'm not going to go through the demos here, but if you want to have a look at that, I will post the link so that you can go and do so in your own time. But let's get into it. Cool. So Fabric news mainly from Feb this year. I took a few that have kind of amalgamated over the last few months. But basically, the updates at the moment are all about maturity and confidence. So we're seeing a continued hardening across workloads, data movements, storage experiences, semantic modeling, and governance improvements. And that seems to be a trend since December till now for what Fabric are focusing on. and they really are focusing on stability, scale, and performance improvements. All right, so just a high-level summary. We are seeing this kind of continued improvement in 3 kind of areas, mainly AI-assisted experiences, deeper integration across the workloads, and enhancements that make complex architectures a little bit easier to build and manage within the Fabric architecture. So just 3 of the preview features that have been released this month or have had a few more tweaks and additions is the recent data feature, and I'll show you a bit of a snapshot of what this looks like now. But basically, it just helps you get back to your data a little bit faster. There's also adaptive performance tuning for pipelines, just to help with some seamless integration. And there's also zero copy access to OneLake in Azure Databricks. So that's currently also in preview. It's not generally available yet, but this will be really amazing for those working with data platforms and not wanting to have any kind of overhead cost when moving data between. So just to show you a bit of a snapshot of what this looks like, on the left here is this recent data option where you can actually see and go back to your data quite quickly. And then obviously our adaptive performance tuning and what exactly that looks like. But for interest of time, I won't dive deep into this. There are demos on Fabric's website on the Microsoft Docs. So please go and have a look at that if you're interested in a bit more details how this is actually working. Cool, then the generally available features as well this month also focus on those same 3 kind of key aspects. The first one is workspace apps are now in the OneLake catalog. So basically you can discover, browse, and open apps directly from the Insights category. So that's really nifty. The second is enhanced notebook version history with multiple sources. So Fabric notebooks now seamlessly integrate with Git, deployment pipelines, and Visual Studio Code. So there's a bit better versioning that you can manage now with these notebooks. And then a little bit more advanced is the private link support for Microsoft Fabric API for GraphQL. So this is just bringing enterprise-grade network security to your data APIs. I won't go into detail on that one, but I'll focus on the first 2. So the workspace apps that are now in the OneLake catalog, this is kind of what it looks like here on the right. But basically, they're now supported. So these workspace apps are now supported in this OneLake catalog, and they can be discovered and opened directly from the Insights category alongside organizational apps and reports. So that's quite nice. The key metadata is surfaced, so you can quickly understand what each app contains before you open it. And it includes all of the Microsoft Fabric item types. So it just makes it a bit more of a central hub for discovering and accessing your Fabric content. So that's quite a nifty one. And then the last one is this enhanced notebook version history with multiple sources. You can kind of see it here in the snapshot on the right, how it's integrating with Git deployment pipelines in Visual Studio Code to ensure better versioning. So basically what happens is every save change is automatically captured in the notebook's version history, and updates can originate from multiple sources. So direct edits from Git syncs and various other mechanisms. And each version is clearly labeled by its source. So it provides full traceability of changes, which is really, really awesome for all of us working in, the software development lifecycle and following those best practices. So yeah, that's a short and brief update from me. As I mentioned, I will put these links in the chat. The YouTube link is for this month's demos on how this is currently working and some additional features that I didn't cover here. But the blog is truly quite amazing for what gets released here and how it works, and tutorials for you to practice online. So yeah, that's me. Thanks, everybody. I'll hand back to you, Sven.
Nicely done. Thank you, Kaylin. Yeah, it's always nice to see the progress that's being made on the different platforms and the different areas. Those Microsoft engineers must be very, very, very busy. Okay, well, thank you for that and bringing it to us so succinctly. Jess, if you're ready, we hand over to you for your BI Flash on PBIR file formats. Over to you. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sven. Let me share my screen.
Yep, there it is.
Awesome. So hi guys, I am Jessica. As Ben introduced me earlier, you'll see quite a bit of me going forward. Just please apologies if my voice sounds a bit iffy. I just got back from sick leave, but all should be fine. So for today's BI Flash, we'll be looking at PBIR, or the Power BI Enhanced Report format. It's currently a preview feature in Power BI Desktop and for new reports in the service. They indicated that it should become the default by Q1. I believe it was January and then it got pushed out to March. So just keep an eye out on that. And they are targeting Q3 of this year for general availability. So it's moving quite fast. It's exactly why it's worth getting familiar with it now. So important to note, this is entirely about the internal file structure of Power BI reports. Your end users opening a report will see nothing different. What changes is what happens in the background. For us developers, it's quite a selfish little change for us. So let's get straight into it. To understand where PBIR sits, it helps to know where we're coming from. So most of us are familiar with PBIX, the classic Power BI file. Under the hood, it's a zip archive. Your data model, report pages, visuals, theme, all bundled into a single binary blob. So it's convenient for sharing, but a real obstacle for collaboration and automation. You may struggle to read the internal files. You can't see differences between versions of the files. And if you've ever tried to handle merge conflicts between two developers working on the same PBIX file, you'll know the problem. The next step that we got to was PBIP, the Power BI project format. So saving as a PBIP writes the report out as a folder of files rather than a zip binary. That alone was a step forward, but the internal structure of that folder still had a significant limitation. So everything was written into a single report.json file, which I'll show to you shortly, as one enormous stringified value. Technically text, but not really structured in a way that's useful for reviewing or scripting. And making changes in this file could often break your report. And collaboration and version control was still tricky because any change in the report would change the exact same file. This is what's now called PBIR legacy. Now, PBIR is the evolution of that. When you enable the PBIR internal format preview in Power BI Desktop and you save your file as a PBIP, you get a properly structured folder, one file per page, one file per visual, and everything is separated and readable. The exact same result for a report viewer, but completely different internal structure. Let me show you exactly what I mean. So here in VS Code, I've opened two versions of the same report, one saved with the legacy format and one with PBIR. We'll look at the legacy format first. So as you can see, it's split it into a dot report and a dot semantic model. In dot report, you get one report.json file. This is everything. All the definitions, the visual configurations, all serialized into one JSON value. It's trackable in version control and you can try and make a change, but it is very fragile. And if you have multiple developers working on the same report, if they make a change, it changes this file only. So as you can see, we can see a visual over here, but this isn't really readable for most people, for me especially. So now let's look at what PBIR does for us. So exact same report, but now you'll see immediately there's a difference. We still have a report.json at the root, but this one is far more clean. It has our theme references, report level settings, resource packages. It's short and sweet. Then we have a page.json file in our pages folder. So this one, also quite short, it just shows tracks the page order and which page is active when the report opens. Then for each individual page, there's a subfolder, each named a unique identifier referred to as the report section. So this is the same identifier that you would see in the report URL in the service. In this, we have another page.json file that shows the internal name of the page, the display name, the canvas dimensions, the fit mode, and everything that a page related settings you would need. So at a glance, you can get a general idea of what is happening on this page. Then we have the meat of the report and my personal favorite part. So we have the visuals folder, and inside that, for every single visual on your page, we have another folder with a unique identifier. Inside that, we have the visual.json file. So from this, you can see the type of the visual, the exact position on your canvas, X, Y, and Z, the height of it, the width of it, what the order is. If it has any colors, this will be shown in here. So if it's using a theme, your fonts will be shown here. Everything related to that visual for the configuration is in this file. Fully described in plain text. So let's think about what that means in practice. If a developer changes the font color on this visual, only this file will change. If another developer updates the canvas width on the page.json file, only this file will change. The granularity means that Git can tell you exactly what changed, who changed it, and when, down to a single property on a single visual. And if we decide tomorrow that we no longer want the change that the second developer made, that's okay, because like in any other version control, we can just revert the changes to that single file. So just to show what that looks like, I went ahead and made, for the sake of time, I changed the encode. I went and changed the position of a visual, so I shifted it down by 10. And for another visual, I changed the title to the BI user group. So yeah, in Git, we can see the exact change that happened to this visual and to the other visual. And if I no longer want this, I can just discard the changes. And our file or Power BI report will still keep the other changes that were made, and it'll work as intended. So with the old format, as you can recall, the entire report.json file would have shown as changed, with hundreds of lines of noise to find the actual difference. With PBIX, Git would just show that the entire file changed. So nothing really to review regarding code. So now we've seen what PBI looks like from a version controls perspective, let's look at what becomes possible when you take that same structured JSON and start scripting against it. This is where PBI moves from a nice improvement to something that could be genuinely transformative. So, go wrong one, there. Okay, let me just close this folder. So, because PBR is just a folder of JSON files, you can write Python scripts that read and modify reports programmatically. No UI plugins or manual clicking through every report. This is work that I'm currently busy with and quite passionate about it. So if you do want to chat afterwards, please let me know. But I'll give you guys two ideas just to get the ideas, two examples just to get the ideas spinning. Please note that these are simplified scripts. I just wanted to showcase the general idea around automation. So the first is rebranding. Imagine we have a large number of reports that all need updating of the theme. Previously, that meant opening every report, navigating to the theme, making the change, saving, and repeating across dozens of files. Hours of work with no real auditing trail. So at the top of this script, we define the folder where all of our reports live. This can either be a folder on Git or a local folder. We also define the path to the new theme.json file that we want to apply. The script then walks through every .report folder that it finds. For each one, it copies the new theme file into the report's registered resources folder. That's where Power BI stores assets like images and themes, and it gives it a unique name to avoid any clashes with what's already there. Then it opens the report.json file, which we looked at earlier, finds the theme collection property and updates the custom theme reference to point to the new file. It also registers it in the resource packages list so that Power BI knows where to find it. We write that file back, and that report now has the new brand theme. Every report rebranded in minutes without actually opening Power BI Desktop once. Now, for the most part, that's a once-off run. But what if we want something more permanent, something that we can regularly run on our reports? The second example is a contrast analysis. So accessibility is something we should be checking on every report, but doing it manually across a large estate is unrealistic. So WCAG, or the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, defines minimum contrast ratios between text and its background. These will be the thresholds that we check against. Again, the script walks through every single .report folder that it finds, and it checks for the visual files inside of it. So it goes into every visual folder, opens the visual.json file, checks if it's a text type, because you can see the visual type, and then it extracts the text color, the background color, and calculates the contrast ratio between them using the WCAG luminance formula. If anything fails, it prints it out for us. So it prints it out for us, gives us the text color, the exact page that it was on, what the contrast ratio was, and so it shows us where our issues are in our report without us having to eyeball where the problems are. And that's really the point. Whether it's applying a theme, auditing for accessibility, or updating connection strings, repositioning visuals, the pattern is always the same. We find the right JSON file, we make the change, and we write it back to the file. PBIR makes all of that possible. So, last but not least, to bring it all together, there are three main things to take away from this. PBIR gives you transparency. Reports are no longer these files that you can't see into. You can see precisely what changed between any two versions, down to the individual visual. It gives you safe collaboration, version control with pull requests, change reviews, and avoidable merge conflicts. It also gives you automation, Python scripts, bulk changes across entire report portfolios, all achievable because the format is just files and text. So to get started, you can enable the PBIR preview feature in Power BI Desktop, play around with it a bit, and then just keep an eye out on when it's going to become the standard and when general availability will show up. So thank you so much, guys. That is it from me for this flash. I will hand it back over to you, Sven.
Wow, that was amazing. I truly enjoyed that. Jess, you're a natural. You made that look so easy. Well done. But actually very impressive, very practical, very relevant. I loved it. So thank you very much for that. I'm sure everyone else enjoyed it as well. Thank you. We are definitely short of time. So we're going to go past the 6 o'clock end time. Obviously, if you've got to drop off, this will be available on YouTube as well. But let's go straight into the final section, which is the top features of 2025 by Nolo and Vusi. This, by the way, is no easy thing to do because you've got to take all of the features of last year, the Power BI features, and try and condense them and assess them and compile them. So very, very well done to Vusi and Nolo. But over to you guys. Let's see what you've got for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben, and thanks, Jessica. That was actually so cool to see. Yeah, I've been looking into PBIR, and I think you've explained it very well. I don't have a lot of time as well, so yeah, I'm gonna have to rush through this, and I'm sorry for that. We did have 237 features that came out. And yeah, now what makes this difficult is that as much as we all come together in our little Venn diagram, but some features may have been important to me and not to you, and vice versa. So this is more of like Nolo's top Power BI features. Yeah, but yeah, let's get into it. There are 237. Okay, general things, and yeah, let me be quick as well. So in July 2025, Power BI turned 10 years old. So it's no longer, I mean, it's still a child compared to Excel and things like that, but it's no longer as young as it used to be. Yeah, there were fewer new Power BI updates in 2025 compared to prior years, but it's because Microsoft is focusing on Fabric, which explains the reduced pace of new features. Another cool thing, as much as Lada may have touched on it, last time we were together, is like Copilot licensing has changed and it's now available across all Fabric SKUs, not just F64, which will make Copilot more accessible. And yeah, I think especially for mobile and just everyone trying to get into the habit of using Copilot, this will be very cool. I'd like to mention something about Power BI Mobile. I think most people don't care for it, but it's quite cool. Yeah, it's not there yet, but I think it is something that we will, especially for teams that don't always work in front of a desk, that move around a lot. It is something that will become powerful with all the big phones that we use that should actually be called tablets. Yeah, and yeah, I'm gonna try to keep this a bit fun and just insightful rather than being overly technical. Because of time, and Lada really did say a lot about Copilot the last time around. I'll just touch on a few things that Copilot can now be used for text and modeling. So users will be able to generate text queries directly from natural language. You will be able to chat with your data using conversational AI that's built into a Power BI. And yeah, it has gotten faster. So yeah, it will make things a bit easier. Now also with data connectivity, I'll be quick as well. There's expanded cloud and database support. SQL Server 2025 integration is now supported. Azure Cosmos DB in Fabric is now also supported, which will make it easier to connect AI-ready features. And this will enable scalability and integration with Fabric workloads. Bing Maps, as Bruce mentioned, has been deprecated, and we now have Azure Maps, which is actually better than Bing Maps. There's enhanced 365 and Fabric integration into Power BI, which will create a better integration with Excel, Teams, SharePoint. Yeah, and you can now export query results since October 2025. You can now export them, and yeah, these updates just show that Power BI is becoming more Fabric unified, if I may, and yeah, and also we will benefit from the newer connections that we now have. Yeah, then I'm gonna jump. Okay, so out of all 237 features, there are ones that are rated A, B, and C. So I'll start with the A ones quickly just to mention some of them. Now, okay, I'm not going to say anything about PBIR. I mean, what can I say after what Jessica said? Yeah, but it's a great feature that's coming in, and it is going to become GA soon. As you've seen, whenever you save a report in the service, or whenever you look at a report, there's a prompt that will show that just be aware that PBIR is gonna become GA soon. Now, this is one of my favorite features of 2025. So editing semantic models in the service. So you can now add measures, adjust relationships, define metadata, as well as reduce your reliance on Power BI desktop. And this does really speed things up. It is a game changer, especially in my line of work, because semantic modeling used to be quite painful since we're just logged on desktop, and now we can adjust things directly on the service. At times, it was small things, maybe a visual wasn't positioned as you'd like. Once you've published it, you see that, or maybe a measure could be improved as opposed to editing an 800 megabyte semantic model, then having to republish it. We can now just do it on the service. It's just great. And then semantic model version history, Vosi spoke about this. This is also quite cool. And I think it also speaks to the whole PBIR format that we were talking about. Power query editing in the web, similar to editing semantic. We use Power query to edit them, but it's also quite cool because it really also does save time as much as it's still in preview. So you can do a lot of your work on the service, save it there, as opposed to the old way of maybe checking files out of Teams and checking them back in, Another cool thing that came out that is still in preview was organizational themes. Now, it's not working as I wish it would, or as it's promised to work, but I know in due time it will, because if you think about the number of reports that are created, it would be nice to be able to just select a theme, and then all reports can start looking the same, having the same look and feel, because this is one thing that bothered me a lot of times, where you find some reports, they just don't feel the same, and at the same time, it's under one organization. So I'm looking forward to what Microsoft cooks with this one. There's also now support for org apps and pro workspaces. This is still in preview, but this is one of those things that will change a lot of people's experiences with Power BI org apps. Also, because this also means that more people will be able to use them in Power BI mobile. Which is great. Now, another feature that I really loved is enhanced dates time intelligence, which is also still in preview. It's a calendar-based approach that lets you define custom calendars, fiscal years, etc., giving a more precise control over how time is calculating, making analysis more accurate for different industries. This is important because, as we know, time intelligence is central to a lot of work that we do, and some industries, like retail industries, may use calendar systems that are not our typical Jan to December or let's say April to March in terms of financial years, but they may have more specialized ones, and this will allow the reports they look at to better reflect the numbers and the targets they are looking at. Then category B, now this had a bit more, it had more features that I thought we should mention now. Standalone co-pilot, Vosi mentioned it, so I will skip it because of time. You can ask anything anyway. Standalone co-pilot and Power BI mobile. It was also mentioned, but you can imagine if you have an executive, in the back of the S-class going to a meeting, they can just, take out their phone, ask a question, against the semantic model, and Copilot will answer them quickly before, whatever they have to do. PBIP also got improved with JSON schemas. So yeah, I mean, like Jessica showed us, PBIP was the project version, which was in the middle. So I'll skip it as well because I think PBIR, it's just better. Then org apps available in Power BI Mobile, like I mentioned earlier, with the Copilot as well. This will make it better for those on the move, etc., and more people will be able to use it. Info.view date for index. This is one of those features that I really liked, as I didn't actually use Dex Query View for a long time, but once I did, and seeing the power of info.view has been quite helpful. I was actually showing the team last week or this week, I'm not even sure, how info.view can actually help in writing semantic model dictionaries for clients or for the internal team. And it just makes life so much easier. Also, selection expressions for calculation groups. So there are improvements again in calculation groups. Now, I'd like to say this. I do like calculation groups. I also do love well, my English is going now. Field parameters. I think both of them really changed how great, how easier it is to work in Power BI. But something that I'm actually excited to mention is lower down the list, which I think is actually an even greater new feature that came to Power BI. So then there was Tyndall view. It became generally available. This is something Lucy spoke about, but Tyndall is also quite great because it's a developer-focused way you can use to edit your reports and work with them. So what Jessica was doing is kind of what we've used Tyndall for, as you would be able to see the report broken down in different sections that you can edit and change in code, as opposed to having to open Power BI desktop or the Power BI service. Using notebooks, which is semantic model. I think Kaden said something about notebooks. Notebooks are very big in Fabric, but it's also cool that you can also bring them into Power BI. And what's great is there are some pre-configured notebooks that you can use, and I have seen some videos that are showing differences between querying data using notebooks, Dex, and Power Query, and notebooks was actually the better of the three. So this is something we should definitely all start using. Semantic model changes in Tyndall. It's something Jessica basically showed us. Now, this is something that I was excited to show you guys or to talk to you about. So Dex user-defined functions. Now, so this is a new feature, but it's still in preview, but it is quite cool because so different industries, have different functions. Maybe they might want, maybe there's a way in which you calculate something that is different to the norm, or what a normal textbook would teach you. What's great about user-defined functions is you can actually define a function in Power BI, save it, and because it can be parameterized, it means that you can use it in other functions instead of having to write and copy it from one function to another. And this will make it easier for you to make changes to it whenever you need to, because you will only have to make changes to the UDF itself, as opposed to all the measures that you have in the report. So quite great. Fill parameters became generally available. Yeah, still one of my favorite things in Power BI. I use them a lot. Um, I think fill parameters. So what we used to use bookmarks for, fill parameters actually changed that. Yeah, it improved a lot. I could spend an entire day talking about them. Automate report actions and data write back with translytical task flows. Now, I haven't used this, but it also looks cool. And I saw Fosi was talking about it. But I think what's going to be great about it is also being able to refresh certain things in the report without refreshing everything. Yeah, which will save time. When you need to use it. There's a new Power BI controller in PowerPoint. Um, this is one of those features that I think will be very important in a lot of organizations. For example, what it's going to do is you'll be able to refresh visuals, etc., in PowerPoint from Power BI. And what makes it great is that you might have maybe an HR person or someone in finance who has to present a report every week or so, showing certain numbers, how the business is growing and stuff. And instead of them having to go, take a screenshot, and paste it into PowerPoint every week, they can now just simply refresh it from PowerPoint itself. And this also means that you can create it in such a way that even people who don't have much knowledge of PowerPoint can actually leverage the power of PowerPoint, and relax a bit with taking screenshots. Then also visual calculations are now supported in bed for your customers. I think this one is quite great because again, you may have customers or report users who are not very good at Power BI, and visual calculations are one way that allows people to create certain calculations just on that visual itself. That is very easy, not as complicated as what DEX would require, etc. I know Sven prefers DEX, but for some people, it is visual calculations would actually be great. Now, with the C's, I'm gonna run through them as well. Desktop startup performance improvement. So this has helped because some files are big, but yeah, Power BI desktop does start up a bit quicker now. There's been expanded data sharing with 365. It makes it easier for people to find data, etc. Just shows how Microsoft is unifying everything. Text query view and web modeling viewer, it will create easier navigation between query and modeling views in the service. Mobile layout auto create. This is one of those things, cool idea, not well executed yet. Yeah, I still just think if you want to create mobile reports, just manually do them. It's better that way. But it has improved, and I think with the introduction of Copilot into Power BI, it will make the improvements even better with time. Yeah, and yeah, button slicer. This is one of those you don't need it till you need it. But it's a new slicer that uses buttons and for cleaner interactivity. It is quite cool, but like I said, it's one of those you don't need it up until you need it. Yeah, that was a quick rundown of some of the features that I liked for the year. But in summary, 2025 was less about bringing new features and more about maturity. There were a lot of GA releases, Copilot expanded, there was a deeper fabric integration. Yeah, and yeah, it seems things are moving more in the service. which is great, which means it will also be easier to work with Power BI as well as Fabric. And I'm excited to see what we get in 2026. Thanks, guys.
Excellent. Nolo, thank you. You handled that very well. There were 237 updates, so that's quite a task, like I said at the start. Thank you also to Vusi, who helped him prepare for the presentation. But Nolo, you presented very, very well. You gave us your Nolo's top features. I don't know if you all picked up on Nolo's little joke about the executives in the back of their S-Class, the Mercedes S-Class. I just thought it would be worth repeating that, because I did chuckle on their mobile phones, Power BI reports. I thought that was great. Anyway, yes, Nolo, thank you very much for that. That does bring our evening to a close. Let me just quickly share my screen one more time, just for the two QR codes. So don't dash off straight away. Just take a snap of the survey and then fill it in this evening or tomorrow morning at your leisure. But that feedback is really, really important for us. It only takes a few minutes and it's invaluable. Okay. And then, as I mentioned about the GitHub story. So unless there are any questions from the audience, we'll wrap it up. But obviously, there is time. We'll stay on as long as we need to if there are questions. All right, no questions. Then I should probably say at the very end, thank you. I did all the talking today as the MC, but in the background, Kaylin and Jess were helping to do all the admin and the organizing in the background. So thank you to both of them. And thank you again to the speakers for a really, really wonderful evening or afternoon and evening of learning. So we look forward to all of you guys joining us again in exactly 4 weeks' time, 26th of March. So that one will be a hybrid event, so online and in person. Okay. Thanks again, everyone. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a good
Have a
evening.
good evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.